Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Professor.
Good evening. God. Good evening, everybody. Want to say hello to all of you superstars of English 111. Last time we met, we had a teaching demo.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, April. With potential Professor Daniel Hangle. And I have to say the committee was very impressed with all of you and your participation in the class and the participation in the chat, and that, I'll just say that they were very impressed with all of you. But anyway,
pat yourself in the back, Professor. All of you, you're making that happen.
Well, I mean, I have to say, I don't know, one of the things that I loved about seeing, all of you in action was that, and I wanted, I agreed to let them do this because I felt it was a good way for us to get ready for the final exam, right? That we've been doing a lot of fiction, and now we're going to do theater, and our final exam is going to be a poem. So it was so refreshing to see you all so willingly dive into the poem and to the expression and interpretation of the poem, and to be able to pull out elements and all that stuff. And I hope that you all can see from yourselves like how you develop the skills to do that, and that's what has happened. So I felt very happy that that we were able to do that kind of work together, and I feel like it puts us in a good place to talk about the final exam. So before I go, what we're going to do, like I talked about in last week, is that we have one more section of the class to dive into, and that's theater. So we're going to begin that today. Your last essay will be on theater, and that will be due December 5th, which I think is a Sunday. That's the last thing that we have due in this class. And then we're really going to spend the time that week after that working on preparing for the final exam. So I'm sorry, I'm just keep admitting people as they're showing up. So so for those of us joining us, what I loved about the last class was that really was your reconnection to poetry after us having left it for a little bit. And one of the things I uploaded to the file folder, and I don't want to spend any time today on it, I'll spend like maybe another 3 minutes or 4 minutes, is I uploaded the poem that's going to be the poems, or there's two poems that will be your final exam. So at your leisure, you can take a look at them, you can read them. The way we will prepare is that I will do a lesson similar to the lessons I've done with other poems, probably a little more extensively, similar to the kind of lesson that Professor Hangle was doing. Like you come in, talk about one poem in particular, right? For us, we will have two poems. There's two short poems that will be for our final exam. So we'll be comparing two poems and talking about one subject using two poems. So the poem's there, right? I just uploaded it before class. I'm gonna share my screen in a moment so you can see it. You can start becoming familiar with it. But right now, the final exam week, right, is December 15th, which is a Wednesday, till December 21st, which is a Tuesday. So you have a full week. Let me just make sure. Yes, December 15th at midnight. Okay, so the way this is, if you were in 110 or in 100 last semester, it works the same way. There's a moment that the prompt becomes available at the beginning of finals week, and then you have 1 week to look at it. Before that, some professors will spend one class. We're going to spend at least 2 classes going over these poems together. And hello, Jerry. And then at midnight on the 15th, the prompt will be put into the folder. And then you have from the 15th all the way until Tuesday, the 21st at 11:59, to write your essay and upload it. Okay. I think we are using Turnitin to do that, which is what we use for our fiction. That's why I also wanted to do the fiction essay on that, so that you become familiar with it, and it's not like, how do I navigate this and I don't understand how to do it, right? So those of you who had any issues, we can do that. And so we'll do the same thing with the Ruby of Elsinore, which is the final drama essay. You'll just do it on Turnitin. So by the time the final exam comes, you'll be familiar with Turnitin. We may spend, okay, as I'm thinking with my lesson plan, my ambitious lesson plan today, we probably won't get to everything because I just thought of something that was important that I wanted to do with us and turn it in. So I'm going to do that first. Okay, so just to say, the final exam is there, the poems for it. We're going to learn those poems, and then you will get a prompt on midnight on the 15th, and then you'll have from the 15th all the way to the 21st to write the essay and upload it. All right, so that's all I'm going to say for the final exam for now. So I sent an announcement yesterday out to everybody. I hope people get the announcements. Just whenever the grading's done, I let you all know so that you have time to go look at it. What I did not do was, yes. Okay, so so what you should do is go to Turnitin. You should be able to see it now. Oh, I know what I'll do. Aha, I just figured out what I'm gonna do. Where's my glasses? So that I could see what I'm doing, okay. Because I was going to do something that I'm realizing I did not do, but I'm going to do something that I think I can do. Go back, go home. Bear with me. I want to open something up and share my screen. I just want to have it all set up so that you can see it. Okay. Oh, is that I just saw a little friend on Johanny's thing. So all right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going into Turnitin from last semester, so it's not a student that's done, is gone, is finished, because I want us to look at Turnitin together so you can kind of navigate it a little bit, and it hopefully doesn't look too different from yours because I have the professor ones who gives me access to everything. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So this is a fiction essay from last semester. I'm going to make this small. So one of the things when you open it up, to make sure that this area is here, that this is highlighted and that this is highlighted, right? So how that turned from purple, I don't know if it's different on yours, if you can highlight them or not, but you should make sure these are highlighted, because when it highlights them, it gives you all of the suggestions for what Turnitin is finding in the work. Now I've gone through them and I have added some and I have taken some things out. Like this one, I would take out and say dismiss because that's the way Christians spell their name, right? But here's an example of there's no title, so I wrote the word title. This person goes on. Here I wrote a comment, lowercase s, right? Here there's a hyphen, it's saying. Here it's saying a proper noun. That's because it was lowercase I. I crossed this out because it said proofread it. So I make corrections throughout the piece. Here's something here, here's a comment, you click it, and then I say simplify this complex sentence, right? So I give comments on the things that one needs to do, and then they go on and on and on. And then at the end, there is a grade, and you know, this was I showed one of the good grades, right? So that there's that. If there was more instruction, I would say more of the things that it needed to be fixed now. So this is one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is if you see this little arrow down here, it allows you to download it. So sometimes I do that, you can do that, and then download it. I'll say, I think it's current view. So you download current view, it's going to make a PDF. Okay, here it is. It's saying fiction essay. And I'm going to open it.
Professor, may I ask a question?
Yes.
The purple, when they're highlighted, what is SP or DUP? Is DUP duplicated?
Yes, and SP is spelling.
Spelling. Okay, thank you.
Right. So this is what I'm going to show you here. So in this download, it gives you the report, right? And then it also gives you what the comments mean. Like on page 2, run-on, this sentence may be a run-on sentence. Comment number 4, those are my comments, are the blue ones, and the purple ones are the system. See SP, this word is misspelled, use a dictionary as whatever. So then this report kind of gives you more of the details of what they all are, if you can't tell by the proofreading marks on here, and it divides them up by page, right? So one way is to go to when you go to your, to make sure these, whoops, right? Make sure these are highlighted so you can see them, right? That's one, and then they'll populate it. And the difference between the blue ones are the comments I wrote, the purple ones are the ones they put in themselves. I may do some more things like cross things out, etc. And then if you go to a little arrow here and you click it, you ask for current view, you get this report which lists everything, and then at the very end gives you more detail page by page. This is page 1. See, it says there. Here it says page 2, and you can follow there. Here it says page 3, page 4, page 5, and it gives you a little bit more of a, you see here, April, which is DUP, you have typed 2 pronouns in a row. You may need to delete one of them. So you go back, yeah, so you go back to page 4, you know, and that you find that here, Rafa's car, she said, she's, they had, see, so there's something going on there. So sometimes you just kind of look and say, oh, I see what it is. 2 things, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So 2 things. One is that if you're going to be doing a revision, I'm going to open the revision folder now. So if you want to do a revision of your fiction essay, you understand what you're revising. And 2 is always good in case, what if you got, like this student got an A-? They're like, oh, I'm not going to revise it. What the hell, right? I'm going to keep my A-. But it'd be good to see like what were the corrections, so that when you do your next essay, which is the fiction one, or you submit your research paper, you at least can see what some of the corrections were, right? So it's helpful to do that. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to show you all that through Turnitin because I kind of explained it, and I was realizing that if I can just click and share the screen, and that was what I was going to do was print one of yours out and then black the name out, but I didn't do that. But I was like, oh, I could use an old one, so I'm sure Christian doesn't mind, and it was not a bad, it was a good grade. So okay, any questions with that? Okay, cool. So if you have not, I haven't checked, turn it in today, but if you have not turned in your fiction essay, turn it in, right? For literally turn it in. Okay. Yeah, it's just because your fiction essay is 15% of your grade, and you can already see that even if you got A's and did everything perfectly, if you don't do your fiction essay, the biggest grade you can get is a B. That's the highest grade you can get, even if everything was perfect, right? So it's important to do all the assignments so that we stay on top of things. Okay. Now, look, we're going to talk about theater. So tell me, has anyone seen a play, or has anybody seen a play? I know many people have not seen plays recently because we've been in a pandemic lockdown, but has anybody recall seeing a play, or gone to see a play like in a community theater at Ostos? We have plays at Ostos, or on Broadway, or because sometimes as we go see a Broadway show. Anybody have any recollection of seeing a play? And of course, you can put in the chat if you can unmute or put it in the chat. Oh,
A Broadway play,
yeah, it could be a Broadway play, any kind of play.
like The Lion King, Wicked.
You saw those?
Yes, Jesus
Okay.
Christ Superstar.
Okay. Those are all plays, and those are all musical plays, right? And so Major Lynn went once with their daughter. Okay.
Yeah, the Lion King as well.
You saw the Lion King. Yeah, a lot of,
Beautiful. Oh my gosh.
all right. It's cool.
So Don Quixote
Long time
many
ago.
years back.
A long time ago. She was in 5th grade, now she's in 10th.
Wow. And then in the chat, I saw someone saw Romeo and Juliet. Who's that? Erica? Okay. Erica saw
I
Romeo.
saw Don Quixote many years back.
Wow. Excellent. Yeah, Don Quixote. There's several plays. We brought a version of Don Quixote to Ostos a couple of years ago. That was pretty interesting. Yeah, but all of these plays that you're mentioning, Romeo and Juliet was written by William Shakespeare, and a lot of times you hear that name, right? Romeo and Juliet, Julius Caesar, Macbeth, and one we're going to become familiar with if you have never read it or seen it is Hamlet. We're going to become familiar with it. We're not going to read Hamlet. If we were going to read Hamlet, we would need like a month to divide it up and all that kind of stuff. So, and we don't have that time. And I think, for the purpose of this class, it's that we can talk about it, and we're going to learn from it, and then we're going to read a different play, a play that's shorter, but a play that's based on Hamlet. But yeah, theater is definitely what many of you mentioned is in different categories. One of them is a musical, and the musicals are very popular, right? And that's why Broadway kind of does it best, because musicals take a lot of talent and sometimes a lot of money. I have never seen The Lion King, believe it or not. I need to get around to seeing The Lion King. I know lots of people have seen it. I did see Wicked only because I take my nieces very often to see plays, and they get to pick the play. And so they picked Wicked to see that. I've seen many plays. And in addition to being a fiction writer, I'm also a playwright. I also write plays. And so musicals are popular, right? But there's also dramas, right? So they don't have to always be musicals. They could be dramas. They could be comedies, right? There's very often you see the, thanks, April. And I'll talk to you all about a play of mine that is coming up. So, I mean, some of you saw the play Reading, and we didn't really get a chance to talk about that. And maybe this might be the time to talk about it when we're talking about drama. But I have a play coming up, opening on December 7th. So that we do in a space. I mentioned early in the class that I run a theater, and I'll share that with you. And Ostos has a play going up right now. So you can click and watch a play right now. So it's called Swagger. So, and we have a theater department, and students can take class there. And then in this case, one of my former students is in it. She was in my English 111 class. Actually, the pandemic, the semester of the pandemic or the semester after. I've lost track, but she, JJ's in the class in the play. So yes, so theater. I do theater at this point of the semester because I think theater includes a couple of different, includes a lot of the elements that we've already studied in poetry and in fiction, and then adds some other elements. So we're going to talk about what those elements are in a moment. But I was talking about there could be comedies, right? And there can also be tragedies, right? So what is a tragedy? What do you think a tragic play is?
Like in Romeo and Juliet, when he
Yeah.
died.
Okay, with a
That's
hard
classic.
ending.
What did you say, Cessa? I didn't hear what
I
you said.
said a play with like a bad ending.
Yeah, well, it's certainly not a happy ending. There's no singing and dancing at the end of the play. You know, at the end of the play, usually there's dead people or something horrible happens, right? Those kinds of things. Those are tragedies. But I think one of the things that is powerful about theater, and one of the things that theater was doing was really reflecting life, right? And that's one of the things that I love about literature in general, that whether you're reading poetry, right, and you're reading a poem like First Poem for You, where it's really talking about desire, but talking about the fear, right, and the uncertainty of it, you know, of life, of relationships, whether you're reading a story like, you know, whether you read fiction and it's a story like Forgiveness that also deals with relationships and deals with metaphor and symbolism, but is really having us look at our lives, right? And how we live. And theater does it, right? Because theater, so giving you an experience. Sometimes you go see a musical and you feel happy, or you see a tragedy and you feel sad, or it makes you think. And, you know, so it's about the human condition. That's what I always talk about. Most of the things I love about literature is that it's about the human condition. And so unfortunately, in our lives, sometimes there is tragedy, right? There is joy and there is comedy and there is music and, you know, all kinds of things that happen. And sometimes you will see many of those things happen in the play. Another one is West Side Story. Oh my gosh, yes, Magdalene. You know, they're making a new version of the movie. I think it's coming out, it's supposed to be in December, right? That Steven Spielberg did. But West Side Story is a classic play. It's been on Broadway several times and was written in the 60s, I think, or the 50s and 60s. It was written and performed. And you know, again, that's considered a tragedy. And do you know that there's a parallel to it to Romeo and Juliet? Right?
Yes.
Okay, great. How do you know that? What's the connection?
From the West Side Story and the Romeo and Juliet.
Mhm.
Or the connections that they have. Okay, let me think. That they were kind of separate for a nice title, but it was I
So
don't know
what do you
how to
mean
say
in
that.
Romeo and
You know what I
Juliet?
mean?
Why are they separated? What's the reason? You remember with Romeo and Juliet?
Because of the
Right.
title,
Okay.
because
That's good.
of the family.
Right.
And the other one was in the West Side Story was two different gangs, you
Right.
know.
Thanks, April.
Yeah.
April was
Thanks for
the chat.
yeah. I was like
Right.
a little stuck.
Right. It's okay. That's cool. That's what we're here. That's what's the beautiful thing about a class. We can help each other out. So yeah, in Romeo and Juliet, it's about two people who are in love, but they come from families that are against each other, right? And they're fighting, right? And and social class, yes, Adama. And in West Side Story, it is that. It's like it's about the changing neighborhood, right? Those of you, have any of you been to Lincoln Center, that area where there's all these beautiful theaters and a water fountain, and now this is green
I
thing.
live here.
You live
2
there?
blocks away.
There you go. So before Lincoln Center, that's where West Side Story took place, is that neighborhood. And they knocked all those buildings out to build Lincoln Center. So, but it was a neighborhood, like many neighborhoods in New York City, that that change, right, with different populations. I'm currently living in Harlem, right across the bridge from Ostos, and there's a big African, like West African community from Senegal, et cetera, that have moved into the neighborhood. And so you see the influence that that has on a neighborhood, right? So maybe in that case, Harlem is a traditionally Black neighborhood. It's still, you know, Black population moving in, but it's a very different Black population that's moving in, right? So West Side Story takes place with that idea as well. It's a neighborhood that was very white and working class, right? Not rich white, but working class people. And in that moment, there was a Puerto Rican migration. And so in West Side Story, the division is that of two people from the different social classes, right? Or the different cultural classes fall in love and the classes are fighting. So in Romeo and Juliet, it's the families that are fighting. And in West Side Story, it's the cultures that are clashing. And the races, right? The race and cultures, a race and culture clash. And unfortunately, they both are tragic, right? Because in Romeo and Juliet, in order for them to, there's a plot that they're going to sneak away together. And so Juliet pretends that she's dead, right? She drinks something to pretend she's dead. And then Romeo finds her and thinks she's really dead and kills himself. And then she wakes up from her sleep that she was supposed to be and finds him dead and kills herself, right? That's sad. And in West Side Story, because of the gangs, the wars, one of the gang members shoots Tony. Maria does not kill herself like Juliet did, but there's a sort of death Maria experiences of her love, right? In West Side Story. So it's tragic. I cry every time I watch it, and I've seen it 100 times.
Me too.
Cry, right? So, but that's beautiful, right? That's something, these characters are not real, right? And yet we have an experience with theater that makes us cry, right? That brings a real emotion to the surface to us, with us. So, so let's, I'm gonna go over some handouts. I've populated our page with the theater folder. So now we have our theater folder. I'm gonna close this for now. Where's this at? You can go away. And here we go. So I do this section here, like I say, understanding drama, right? So drama is a play or piece of writing, so it's literature that's almost exclusively through dialogue, right? That it's presented it's almost all dialogue. Whereas right now, this is prose, right? And we're reading fiction is written like that, and poetry has its own format. So this is like a short story or novel. It has settings, character, and plot, right? Those are one of the three things, the elements of fiction: setting, character, and plot. It can even have symbolism, right? So however, the way in which we are presenting to the audience is a difference, because unlike a short story or novel, the play is meant to be performed in front of an audience, right? So that's the difference. Short stories and novels, they're meant for individuals to read them, and a play is written, but is really written to be performed, right? It's supposed to, the idea that it exists to be seen, not necessarily read. Dramatic form plays are not written like paragraphs in a novel. Instead, they're written as lines of dialogue in the form of a script. And then here there's an example, right? From Act 1, Scene 1, Bernardo, who's there, Francisco, nay, answer me. This is from Hamlet. And unfold yourself, Bernardo, long live the king. And then Francisco says, Bernardo. So this is Bernardo, not from West Side Story, from Hamlet. And Francisco, and these are two characters talking. And so the play is written like this, right? So there isn't a lot of necessary direction, although it could be, but it's lines of dialogue, right? So typically these scripts are broken down into one or more acts or major divisions in the play. And then each of these acts is subdivided into a scene or smaller divisions within the act. So if you see, this is the very first is Act 1, Scene 1. In Hamlet, there's 3 acts, I think, or 4. I'll check. But an act is like a section, and then inside of the sections, there are scenes. And sometimes a scene is because maybe something takes place in one room. There could be a scene where it takes place in the next room, and they'll switch scenes back and forth. And that's what I just mentioned, the last line. So the other thing is setting and staging, right? So very often the play will include stage directions, right? Or will give you notes that are in italics or parentheses, and that help the actors interpret the scene. So here, if we had done the full thing here, which is Act 1, Scene 1, here we would see that it's a Scene 1, Elsinore, a platform before the castle, and then in parentheses, Francisco is at his post, and enter to him Bernardo. And then the dialogue begins. So this one gives you just a little bit, but sometimes you get more of a setting, more of a scene. Very often I've used a play called The Glass Menagerie, and Tennessee Williams is a writer that writes paragraphs for his setting and is super poetic in how he describes it. But that's another thing in terms of formatting that is different. The other things is that plays very often have characters and of course and actors. So before the dialogue in a script, the play will often include a cast of characters. Typically, each character, both major and minor, is listed alongside a brief description of the character's role in the story. In the example you see below, that's not true, it's not about Tom. It's like, so here, these are the characters from Hamlet, right? And so we have Claudius, who's the king of Denmark, Hamlet, the son to the former and nephew to the present king, Gertrude, queen of Denmark, mother of Hamlet, Polonius, Lord Chamberlain, Ophelia, the daughter of Polonius, right? Laertes, son to Polonius, so he's Ophelia's brother, Horatio, a friend to Hamlet, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are both courtiers or kind of folks that are part of the court, friends of Hamlet, Fortinbras, a prince of Norway, and then the ghost of Hamlet's father, right? So these are the characters. And this list is usually, when you get a playbill, they're listed usually with the actor playing them, their name next to them. When you read a play, this is giving you a sense of who the characters are. And the biggest difference is between the characters, like fiction stories have characters, but the difference is that these characters are actors, right? Representing characters on a stage. So, and the actors are chosen based on their physical and verbal ability, right? So how they look and how they speak is important. And it's important that actors have physical characteristics such as red hair or stocky nature because of the important aspect of the play. Now, plot is something that you're familiar with from fiction, right? So these also have plots, right? The plot structure of the play doesn't really differ from that in prose. There's exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution, all things that are considered in Freytag's dramatic structure. So the conflict occurs before the rising action begins. The conflict is the problem that must be solved. Sometimes the conflict's between two characters, like, okay, Troy and Corey play out dialogue with action, forget about that. Other times it's internal conflict and the characters and his or her own thoughts of action. So I'll give you an example in Hamlet, right? What has happened, I'm going to stop sharing for a minute and I'll come back to it. So in the play Hamlet, what has happened before the play begins, right, is that his father is killed, right? His father's the king and his father gets killed. So that happens before the play even begins. And then when the play begins, Hamlet is coming back from school. He was away at school because his father's dead. And when he comes back from school, he finds out that his father's brother, his uncle, has married the queen, right? So now Hamlet should have been the prince. The king, he's the prince, so he should have been the king when the king died. But the queen married someone else, so now that person became king. So in a way, I don't think Hamlet's ready to be the king, but in a way, if you look at the succession in line, he should have been the king. And his uncle married his mother, right? And then, so that's it. So this whole play begins, Hamlet has an internal conflict, right? He has an internal conflict because he says, okay, because I'll just say this, because his father's ghost appeared to him and said to him, that MF killed me. Like, he killed me. So now Hamlet's like, really? Do I trust this ghost? Or is it a figment of my imagination? What if that ghost is a demon, right? And he's trying to trick me and I kill my uncle. And then if I kill my uncle, I go to hell, right? So Hamlet has this internal conflict, right? He's through the whole play, like trying to figure out what he needs to do, right? So that's considered an internal conflict, right? External conflict would be things in the environment, like in Romeo and Juliet, there is an external conflict, right? There are these gangs, right, in West Side Story that are fighting, and these two people almost have to deal with this external conflict, right? In Romeo and Juliet, it's the families, right? And so Romeo and Juliet have to navigate, this external conflict. Hamlet is having an internal conflict. He's trying to figure out whether to avenge his father's death or not, right? Let me share a screen, go back so I can finish that handout and then we can look at some other elements. So addition elements of theater, we talked about this. Comedy in the Greek sense, a play that doesn't end in death. In the modern usage of the play is that it's humorous. Tragedy in the Greek sense is a play that ends with the death of at least one main character. In modern usage refers to a play that doesn't have a happy ending, right? That's what something says that offered. Dramatic irony, right? It's a contradiction between the character thinks and what the audience or reader knows to be, right? So that means that very often it is, am I sharing my screen?
Yes, Professor, you are.
Okay.
You're reading off the.
Okay, good. Let me stop sharing. So dramatic irony, sometimes I think of it, horror movies do it best, right? It's when the audience knows more than the character on the stage, right? The audience knows something. And I feel horror movies do this great. Like they'll show the killer walk into the house, right? And then they show people coming back, oh, hey, what's up? Going in the house. And people are like, oh my God, don't go in the house because, he's in there, right? So that's the idea of dramatic irony, is when the audience members know information or something that the character on stage may not know. The other elements, and I'll just read them, is dialogue, right? And so dialogue, that means that people are more than one person is talking, right? Monologue is when one character is talking and they're giving you a whole speech about something. In Hamlet, we're going to look at a monologue from Hamlet. Are
you sharing now, Professor, or no?
No,
you're not sharing. Okay.
I'm not sharing that. I'm just talking. Right. So the monologue is usually when the character is expressing their inner thoughts and to themselves and to the audience, and that's sometimes also called a soliloquy. Right. When they're like saying, like we're going to look at one, whether we get to it today or not, we'll see. But we'll look at one from Hamlet. And then there's also an aside, which is a monologue sometimes performed like, but the character addresses the audience directly. So an example will be like, let's say if you're the audience, right? And I'm the actor on stage. And I was like, yes, go to the store. She doesn't know what the store is. She's crazy. And then I continue talking is when that's an aside that the character turns to the audience and shares something. Sometimes it's a whole monologue, but shares something and continues with the action, right? So those are some of the elements. I'm gonna share my screen and go through some other things here. So elements of drama, right? We've been talking about this, that the difference is that there's literary elements, right? And for us, we just did an essay on literary elements. So there's things like symbolism and imagery and irony and metaphors, and all those things are happening inside of a play, right? The two things that are added to it, that there's technical elements like, right, lighting and sound and music and projection now, and then there's performance elements, right? That there's actually people on stage acting things out. This great philosopher Aristotle, right, was the first to write about the elements of drama, like over 2,000 years ago. And the ideas have changed. We'll talk about Aristotle's 6 elements of drama, and then we'll update it. So Aristotle wrote about theater, and he was like, it has plot. We know what happens in the play, right? That's it. It has theme, right? We know themes, right? The main ideas of the play, right? The main action. As characters in fiction, we had characters, so there's plays. Dialogue, this difference, even though there is dialogue in short stories, the dialogue here is spoken. There's music and rhythm, right, which is featured in drama, right? So sometimes Shakespeare wrote many of his plays using a rhythm to the language, which is sometimes why you hear Shakespearean plays sounding different. Now it's not only using Old English or Middle English, but it's using, sometimes there is a rhythm to it, right? And spectacle, right? So that refers to the visual elements, right? Sets, costumes, special effects, right? So Aristotle, like 2,000 years ago, saying drama has these 6 elements, right? Plot, theme, characters, dialogue, music, rhythm, and spectacle. So the modern theater has very much the same things, right? Character, plot, theme, dialogue. This one has convention, genre, and audience. They do it. So convention, which is different, are the techniques used by the playwright or the director to create a desired stylistic effect. Genre is a type of play, so it's not only comedy and tragedy, we have mystery, we have historical plays, we have all kinds of plays, and then audience in modern theater is considered an important element to theater. So, so here's an element of plot structure, right? If you remember Freytag's structure, right? This one in theater, they talk an initial incident, something that happens, an event that gets the story going. Preliminary events, right? So in Hamlet, a preliminary event is that the father is killed, whatever takes place before the play. Actually, in the play, the father's killed. The initial event, the father tells him, the king killed me. And then arising action is all the things that Hamlet does, trying to get to this place of trying to figure it out. And then the climax is a turning point where something cannot, it can't go the other way. And the falling action is a series of events that follow the climax, and the denouement is the unraveling, right? So I'm going to tell you, no, well, we're going to go through the elements of Hamlet. So other elements are exposition, the who, when, where, and what of the play, the story organization, the beginning, the middle, and the end, conflict, internal or external, we spoke about that, and suspense, a feeling of uncertainty as to the outcome, like you don't know what might happen at the end. Other literary elements are language, like style, the shaping of dramatic materials, settings or costumes. I talked about soliloquy, right? When the actor's alone, and a monologue made by an actor when he delivers alone or in the presence of others, right? It could be either or a monologue, but soliloquy, they're usually a soliloquy sounds like solo, so they're usually alone on stage. Then we have all these things. We have scenery, right? The set. Sometimes they could be realistic. Sometimes they could be you know, spare, like very, very simple. We have costumes that are another aspect of it. And then we have props, right? So there could be, so props are any of the things that if a person is drinking from a glass, if they're carrying a purse, if they're, you know, sitting on a chair, all those things are, well, chairs could be part of the scenery, but those are the different props and movable actions. But costumes, if it takes place in the 1970s, then maybe wearing costumes that are from that period. If it's costumes from the 1800s, they may look like that. If they're set in the tropics, people may be wearing shorts and things like that. So the costumes really reflect and help tell the story as well. And then the other technical elements are lights, sound, right? Lights are the lights that create mood, or the color of the lights to give a feeling on the stage. We have sound, we can have sound effects, what the audience hears. If there's music, there could be a doorbell, it could be sounds from the street that people are listening to. And all of this is to create the illusion on stage, right? And then of course there's makeup, costumes, and wigs. If any of you have seen Hamilton, it's on Disney, you see that it's supposed to be taking place in the 1800s. And so there is, they look from that time period. Then there's the performance elements of acting, right? We'll see acting, character motivation, like what moves the characters, like what gives them inspiration. In Hamlet, like what is moving him to, I mean, revenge, right? That's his motivation. He wants to get revenge for his father. And then a character analysis is something you all have done in your fiction writing and in your fiction essays, and that is really looking at, like, how do you know this character? What do you know about them? How do you learn about them? What are their actions? What are their words? And what does that say about who they are? And then there's empathy, right? How do you feel, right? How can you, empathy is like relating to the feelings of another person. That's what empathy means. Like, I could feel you, I understand where you're coming from. I have a connection, an emotional connection. And then if any of you do performing yourself, you know, there's lots of things, right? There's way you deliver a line, there's how you breathe, right? Your vocal expression, you know, what do you hold? What do you speak loudly? Do you, you know, inflection, right? So projection, usually that stage, in modern stages, a lot of microphones, but in the old days, there wasn't. And so you had to project, you had to learn how to be able to speak in a way that your voice could reach the back of the theater. How do you deliver the lines? And then diction, how do you pronounce it, the clarity of the speech. And we're coming, it is the last slide. There's also nonverbal expression, gestures, facial expression. I mean, these last couple of slides here is really talking about, I'm going to stop sharing. It's really talking about what the actor does. Like we could read, right, a poem, we could read the text, we could read a play, but when somebody is acting it, there's so many ways that it can be done, right? And the way in which that is done sometimes will affect how you receive it, right? And so, so that's an important element, right? That we're gonna be reading Ruby of Elsinore. There is a production of it online. It is horrible, so I will never show that to my students. If somebody ever does a good production of Ruby of Elsinore, I'll include it. But it is not a good one. I often have asked the theater department here if they can consider it, doing it, because it's short. It's like it's considered a not a 10-minute. It's a one act play. So it's one act could be, I think it's probably like 20 minutes if it was to be performed. So so yeah, so those are the different elements of theater. So I want us to not forget that we know character, setting, and plot, not to forget that there's symbolism, that there's all these other things that are going on. But now there's dialogue that's really dominating, and there's an aspect of it that is about performance, right? But the beautiful thing about plays being written is that even though we don't get to see them, we still get to read them, and you can still gain a lot from the reading of them. Okay, so I'm going to now dive into Hamlet a little more. Okay, and so in your so let me, before I go there, let me show you, let's go to the Blackboard so you can see what's there. Blackboard, let me go to let me find your class again. Here we go. So now when you go to Blackboard, you go to course content, you open it up, the folder at the top above the fiction, where the fiction essay is the theater info. So this here, what I just, this first one is this Elements of Theater is this one, this handout here that we were talking about, just the very basics of it. The second one, Elements of Drama PDF, is this one. This is slide here. So it has all of this information in it. And then here we have the Hamlet Synopsis and the Ruby of Elsinore play. So I'm going to click this, and as soon as it loads, then I'll open it up. Okay, it's ready. All right, so Hamlet by William Shakespeare. So here are the characters. We saw them already from the other piece, right? Hamlet, the Prince of Denmark, Crown Prince of Denmark, who returns from the university in Wittenberg, Germany, to find his father dead and his mother married to the king's brother, Claudius, and Claudius newly self-crowned king. Then you find Claudius, the king of Denmark, dead King Hamlet's brother, who has usurped the throne and married his sister-in-law. Gertrude, the queen of Denmark, Prince Hamlet's mother, King Hamlet's widow, King Claudius's wife. The ghost of the late King Hamlet, condemned to walk the earth until his soul is cleansed of its sins. Polonius, the elderly Lord Chamberlain, chief counselor to the Claudius, so he is the new king's counsel. Horatio, a commoner, but Horatio went to school with Hamlet and remains his loyal best friend. So he's not part of the royal family, he's just a friend of his. Laertes, right, who is the son of Polonius, and he was a student in Paris. Laertes is Polonius' son and Ophellius his brother. He returns from school because of King Hamlet's death. He leaves to go back to Paris and then returns again after his own father's murder. Ophelia, daughter of Polonius, sister of Laertes. Ophelia is the beloved of Hamlet. And then Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, classmates of Hamlet, and Fortinbras is the king of Norway. Those are some of the characters that we need to know. So here's a summary, and I'm going to make this a little bigger. I'm going to read it. And then this is Hamlet. So Prince Hamlet is depressed. Having been summoned at home to Denmark from school in Germany to attend his father's funeral, he is shocked to find out his mother, Gertrude, is already married. Now, the queen has wed Hamlet's uncle, Uncle Claudius, the dead king's brother. So to Hamlet, the marriage is foul incest. Worse still, Claudius has had himself crowned king, despite the fact that Hamlet was his father's heir to the throne. So Hamlet suspects foul play. So on a dark winter night, the ghost walks the ramparts of Elsinore Castle in Denmark. It speaks to Hamlet, declaring ominously that it is indeed his father's spirit and that he was murdered by none other than Claudius, who he says poured poison in King Hamlet's ear while the old king napped. Unable to confess and find salvation, King Hamlet is now consigned for a time to spend his days in purgatory and walk the earth by night. He entreats Hamlet to seek revenge, right? I'm here, right? He asks Hamlet up here, right? To seek revenge on the man who usurped his throne and married his wife. The ghost disappears with the dawn. Now, Prince Hamlet devotes himself to avenging his father's death, but because he is contemplative and thoughtful by nature, he delays entering into a deep melancholy and even apparent madness. He finds himself more confused than ever. In his persistent confusion, he questions the ghost's trustworthiness. What if the ghost is not a true spirit, but rather an agent of the devil sent to tempt him? What if killing Claudius results in Hamlet having to relive his memories for all eternity? Hamlet agonizes over what he perceives as his cowardice because he cannot stop himself from thinking. Words immobilize Hamlet, but the world he lives in prizes action. Claudius and Gertrude worry about the prince's erratic behavior, attempting to discover its cause. They employ a pair of Hamlet's friends, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, right, to watch him. When Polonius, the pompous Lord Chamberlain, suggests that Hamlet may be mad with love for his daughter Ophelia, Claudius agrees to spy on Hamlet in conversation with the girl. But though Hamlet certainly seems mad, he does not seem to love Ophelia. He orders her to get to a nunnery and enter and declares that he wishes to ban marriages. So now a group of traveling actors come to Elsinore, the town, right, with the castle, and Hamlet seizes upon the idea to test his uncle's guilt. He will have the players perform a scene closely resembling the sequence by which Hamlet imagines his uncle to have murdered his father, so that if Claudius is guilty, he will surely react. When the moment of the murder arrives in the theater, Claudius leaps up and leaves the room. Hamlet and Horatio agree that this proves his guilt. So Hamlet goes to kill Claudius, but finds him praying. Since he believes that killing Claudius while in prayer would send Claudius' soul to heaven, Hamlet considers that it would be an inadequate revenge and decides to wait. Now, Claudius is frightened of Hamlet's madness and fearing for his own safety, orders that Hamlet be sent to England at once. He said, let me get rid of him. Hamlet goes to confront his mother, in whose bedchamber Polonius has hidden behind a tapestry. Hearing a noise from behind the tapestry, Hamlet believes it's the king hiding there. He draws his sword and stabs through the fabric, killing Polonius. For this crime, he is immediately dispatched to England with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. However, Claudius's plan here, right, for Hamlet includes more than banishment. He has given Rosencrantz and Guildenstern sealed orders for the King of England, demanding that Hamlet be put to death. So Hamlet thinks, I'm pausing on it. So up until this moment, right, Hamlet comes back from school. His father says, his ghost says, this man killed me. He poured poison in my ear. Do you know how your ear's connected to your throat, right? So he pours poison in my ear, and that the poison went in and killed him, right? So now Hamlet is trying to figure it out. So he's saying, okay, I think he's right. I just did this. So he does this play, right? There's a group of actors that come to town. He goes, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell the actors to play that scene, do the scene of pouring poison in the ear. And if Claudius reacts, that means he's guilty, right? So then Claudius reacts, he gets up and he leaves. And then Hamlet's like, aha, I'm going to kill him. And then when he goes to kill him, he's praying. So he's like, I'm not going to kill him while he's praying, because then he's going to go to heaven. And I don't want him to go to heaven, right? So I'm going to wait. And then the king is like, I'm going to get rid of Hamlet because Hamlet's like out to get me. And then Hamlet goes to talk to the mother. And when he goes to talk to the mother, there's somebody behind the curtain, and we know it's Polonius, right? But Hamlet thinks it's the king, so he pulls out his sword and stabs the curtain and kills Polonius. So then, because he kills Polonius, they send him to England. But when they send him to England with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, the king gives him a letter for the king of England and tells the king of England to kill Hamlet, right? So that's where we left off. All right, I'm going to continue. So, in the aftermath of her father's death, right, because Polonius is Ophelia's father, Ophelia goes mad with grief and drowns in the river. Okay, so far, if you're doing the body count, there's 3 dead people, right? The first king, Polonius that is killed by Hamlet, and now Ophelia that drowns in the river, right? So Polonius' son, her brother Laertes, who has been staying in France, returns to Denmark in a rage. Claudius convinces him that Hamlet is to blame for his father's death, right? Because that's and his sister's death. When Horatio and the king received letters from Hamlet indicating the prince has returned to Denmark after pirates attacked his ship en route to England. So he never makes it. So Claudius concocts a plan to use Laertes' desire for revenge to secure Hamlet's death. So Laertes will fence with Hamlet, right? Fences when they fight with kind of these pointy swords, and in an innocent sport. But Claudius will poison Laertes' blade so that if he draws blood, Hamlet will die. As a backup plan, the king decides to poison a goblet, which he will give to Hamlet to drink should Hamlet score the first or second hits of the match. So Hamlet returns to the vicinity of Elsinore just as Ophelia's funeral is taking place. Stricken with grief, he attacks Laertes and declares that he has in fact always loved Ophelia. Back at the castle, he tells Horatio that he believes one must be prepared to die, since death can come at any moment. A courtier named Osric arrives and Claudius's orders to arrange the fencing match between Hamlet and Laertes. So the sword fighting begins, all right? I'm gonna come back to the class, all right, so now Laertes is upset because he's like, oh my God, my father got killed by Hamlet, and then my sister drowned herself. And earlier in the piece, they thought that Hamlet was in love with her, but then when the king Claudius is spying on them, he's like, I don't love you. You should, if you think you're going to be with me, you better go become a nun, right? Get thee to a nunnery. He says, he goes, he totally, and then later on when she's dead, Hamlet's like, oh my God, I really loved her, right? This is the kind of indecisive character that Hamlet is. So the king says, all right, here's the plan. Since Laertes is pissed off with Hamlet, let them fence. But I'm gonna, and that's usually a sport, like whatever, that somebody will not necessarily die. But he said, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna poison Laertes' sword so that if he scratches Hamlet, Hamlet will get poisoned and die. But if Hamlet actually scratches Laertes first or harms him first, I'm gonna do a goblet with poison so I could say, here, Hamlet, toast, and when Hamlet drinks it, Hamlet's gonna die, right? So that's the king's plot. All right, I'm gonna share the screen again. Okay, so the sword fighting begins, right? Hamlet scores the first hit, but doesn't want to drink from the goblet the king offers. Instead, the king leaves it there, and who drinks from it? Gertrude, his mother. She drinks from it, and she's swiftly killed by the poison. Laertes succeeds in wounding Hamlet, right? So Laertes wounds Hamlet, and though Hamlet does not die of the poison immediately, first Laertes is cut by his own sword's blade, and after revealing to Hamlet that Claudius is responsible for the queen's death, he dies from the blade's poisoning. Hamlet then stabs Claudius through the poisoned sword and forces him to drink out the rest of the poisoned wine. Claudius dies, and then Hamlet dies after achieving his revenge. Before he dies, Hamlet declares that the throne should now pass to Prince Fortinbras of Norway, and he implores his true friend of Horatio to accurately explain the events that have led to the bloodbath in Elsinore. With his last breath, he releases himself from the prison of his words. The rest is silence. The play ends as Prince Fortinbras, in its first act, the King of Denmark, orders a funeral with a full military honors for the slain Prince Hamlet. Okay, so the climax is all these deaths. Then all this action that happens after is the falling action and the unraveling and the denouement, right, of the play. So that's it. That's a tragedy. Everybody's dead, right? The queen's dead, the king's dead, the old king's dead, Hamlet's dead, Gertrude's dead, Ophelia's dead. Everybody's dead at the end of the play. Just so all the main characters are gone at the end of Hamlet. Okay, so so the big kind of thinking that Hamlet is doing, right? So we're going to do two things, right? So the big thinking that Hamlet is doing is a famous speech. Have people heard "to be or not to be"? That is the question. Have you heard that speech? Or have you heard those lines maybe? Because everybody's like, "to be or not to be." That's a common thing. So that monologue comes from Hamlet, okay? So let's see, what were we going to do? Because it's 10 minutes. To end or not to end? That is the question. To end class or not to end class? That is the question. So before we do that, let's talk about next class, right? So our next class, so right now, everybody, the research is not due until the beginning of class or the end of class, something, the beginning of class next or the end of class next week, on Wednesday. I pushed it from Sunday to Tuesday, and I just said, let's just go to Wednesday. I'm just trying to not make it, I'm trying to get you to finish it before Thanksgiving. I want you to have a good Thanksgiving without doing a research paper. That's what I want. All right. So the sooner you do it, the better. Get it out of the way. Eat your turkey or your.
Sorry, Professor.
Yeah.
On Sunday, I'm here like I'm rushing trying to do my paper. I'm like, oh my God, I got a paper due. I got a paper due. And then I finished it on Sunday by like 7 o'clock in the morning because I'm thinking it was due on Sunday. And then I go and read the email. It says Wednesday. I'm like, oh my God. Like I'm rushing through.
Do you feel good about what you did?
Yeah, I do. Because I feel like I got it out the way.
All right, good. Have a happy Thanksgiving, media. Everybody else, I mean, you know, ideally, so I'm sorry, I was going to send it Saturday. Did I send it Saturday? I can't remember when I sent it, the announcement, but I sent it out.
I believe you send it Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, because I see it.
Right.
Yeah,
So that, but yeah, I just was, you know, I was just feeling it for all of you. So
Thank you, Professor.
Okay. But Nidia is done, so she could chill a little bit. But anyway, but yeah, if you can get it done today, if you can get it done sooner, that would be better, so you can have a good Thanksgiving. I'm the one who's going to be working Thanksgiving because I'm going to be grading your research papers, right? So my hope is to have them graded by the time we get back on Monday.
I'm gonna work in Thanksgiving too.
Say it again. You got to work.
I have to work.
Oh,
I work in a hospital. So.
yeah. Okay. So Thelma is getting bumped out of class. So there's a couple things that we could do. So I'm happy to have class on Wednesday. You know, it's scheduled. I'm happy to do it. And we could do a couple things. We could, if people are going to be here and come to class, we could do a class. If people are not, I just, you know, we could make it a study time for people to ask questions and that kind of thing, if we want to do that. We can not have class and just cancel it all together, and then all of you just work on your papers and work on your things. You know, we could do that. I know that that's probably what everybody wants, right? I mean, but be honest. I mean, you could, yes, I'm seeing Erica's nodding her head.
I would like to travel that day,
Okay.
but I'm depending on your, if class is gonna take place or not.
Okay, so let's just do that. So we won't have class on Wednesday, right? I'll send the note out.
Oh, okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, if everybody really wants to, we can make it an office hour. If somebody wants to meet with me that time, I mean, I'm fine. I'm gonna be home. I'm not cooking. All I gotta do is buy some wine, and I already bought pasteles that my sister now says she doesn't want because she's gonna make them. So I'm like, all right, well then I'll just keep them in my freezer and feed them to my friends when they come over, or something like that. So on Wednesday, I'm just gonna be home, you know, just doing things. So if anybody wants to, you can just send me an email. I'm happy to do it. Office hour or study hour. I mean, you know, something like that. But otherwise, you know, we won't have a class on Wednesday, and all of you could travel or cook or whatever it is that you do. I always feel that weird. I mean, when I first started teaching, I was like, I will give class, and then like 3 students will show up, and I feel so bad because they were like, I have to be home and cooking, but since I'm a good student, I'm gonna show up to class because you're having class. And I was like, then I did a study hour. And so there were students that had the option to come when we were meeting in person. They had the option, so you can come or not. And then I would sit there and I would wait. And then if they came, we worked on their research papers and we work on whatever they would bring something and we would work on it. So okay, officially we will I'll send an email to everybody so we won't have class. So you can
Okay.
do your things. So then so here will be your homework. It's 6:39. Great. So you're
Mhm.
gonna have two pieces of homework, and they're both reading. Okay.
Okay, okay.
In the folder, there is the to be or not to be speech. And I'm doing some openness so we can look at it today before we go, right? So I want you to read the to be or not to be speech. Then I want you to read the play Ruby of Elsinore. We're going to read it together when we come back, but for you, so you can become familiar, because your essay will be based on the Ruby of Elsinore. So we'll read it together on Monday when we get back together. We'll talk about it on Monday, and we'll continue on Wednesday if we don't get to finish speaking about it on Wednesday of next week. And then in your folder right now is let me go to the folder. Share screen, your folder, okay. If you go to in the theater folder is the Hamlet synopsis I just read, the play is connected to it, I'm gonna show you that. Here's a speech, to be or not to be, right? The speech, here it is. Right? It's like just a little over, not even a page, because it's half a page, right? Here it is, to be or not to be, that is a question, whether 'tis noble in the mind to suffer these things in error. So read it, and I want you all to think about, or maybe, yes, just think about it. I actually use this time, I'm gonna tell you what to use this time to do. So I want you to read that. So your homework is gonna be read the to be or not to be speech, and then here's the other thing you're gonna read, and it's not that long. So in that Hamlet synopsis page, where's this at? Speech, theater. On this that I just read you, that's these 2 pages, right? When you go beyond it, there's the play Ruby of Elsinore, right? So I want you to, and you can see this, Ruby of Elsinore, the characters are there, right? Setting. And then I want you to read this. And this play is how many? Is 19 pages, right? So see, and plays go by fast because it's 19 pages, but there's all this empty space, right?
Mhm.
So for next Monday, you'll have 2 reading assignments. One is to read the to be or not to be speech. And the second thing, we'll read the play together, right? And yes, because what I'm going to do, I was going to give you a writing assignment, but I'm not, because I want you to work on your research paper so you can get that done by Wednesday. And also, this is an opportunity for those of you who are missing assignments to use the time to try to make up some of the assignments, right? To get your essays in, or if there's a revision you want to do, I'm going to open the revision for the fiction essay. So if you want to do that, I'm going to open that as well. So let's use this time, but there won't be just reading that you need to do. And instead of giving you an assignment for next week, Monday or something like that, we'll just leave it alone and just do the reading and try to catch up on your work. Okay.
Mhm.
All right, I'm going to pause and see if you have any questions or comments.
Professor, I have a question about the grades. I know that you said that you grade some papers. I checked my grade and I see I don't have the grade for the fiction.
Grade should be, and at the end, after it's all those things, I usually write something at the end and I put the grade there.
I go like Blackboard, and then I go to grades, right? Or should I go on different?
No, you just
And
you
turn
go
it in.
turn it in. You go to
Turn it in. Oh, and turn
read,
it
you read
in.
your paper, and at the end of the paper, there's I write comments and I write a grade. So if things were like, if there was like missing a thesis statement, or I write comments on it and I put the grade there. Or if it was great,
Okay.
wonderful, the thesis is clear, the organization was good, good examples, whatever was strong about the paper. Okay, so look at that too. If you have any questions, you can email me, but that's why I wanted to turn it in so you can see how to go to your paper, open it, and go to the bottom and see what your grades are, right? And my comments. All right. And then what I'll do tonight, the minute the class is over, I'll open a revision folder, and it'll be turn it in as well, and it'll just say revision of fiction essay. And so you can look at it. I'll put it right above the fiction one, so you could see that. And if you want to do a revision, we'll do, the deadline will be like the same thing, maybe the 5th or something like that. I mean, revisions could be, let me look at our calendar, because yeah, revisions, I could make the deadline, whatever it is, that 12th, December 12th, for any revisions. We can make that the deadline revisions that you will do, right? That's probably be the revision for the research paper as well. So so if you submit it in, spend time. I'm also getting my booster shot. I hope I'll be, last time I only got sleepy. That's why I slept for like 15 hours. And then that was it.
Hydrate a lot, Professor, that's all.
That again?
So hydrate a lot.
Yeah, so my goal is to grade your research paper, so we can get back on Monday. They're graded. I should be able to. Last time, like I said, that was my only side effect, that I got really sleepy and I slept for 15 hours. I slept from like 6 o'clock one night to like almost 9 or 10 the other morning. I was out.
Wow.
I was like, boom.
I have that
More
too.
than 12 hours.
Yeah.
I have that the first time when I did the first shot too.
Yes, it was only with the first shot, because the second shot, then I thought it was the same thing gonna happen. And I got home and I put my pajamas and I got Netflix, and it was 6 o'clock and I was up to 1 o'clock in the morning watching movies.
Yeah, I was okay too the second time.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm gonna take the booster. I don't know.
Listen,
It's too much.
I am practicing what is called harm reduction. Do people understand the idea of harm reduction? The concept that if you can reduce the harm, you can lessen.
Like every medication you take.
Yeah. It's about
Like
reducing.
it.
I think we will be okay, because I have one of my uncle. He took the booster already, and he's 71 in France. So, yeah.
Well, I'm not 71 yet. I hope to someday be 71.
Yeah.
So I want to.
Okay.
And I may travel in January. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm trying to say, let me get the booster now. Let it do its 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then I might get on a plane and go somewhere. So.
And not for anything, but this morning I was in New Jersey and I saw the news, and over there it went up 30-something% in less than a week. So.
Yeah.
That's
it's still
Professor,
rising.
We could talk more about
again.
I have a question. I'm sorry. It's about the research paper. Will you take points off if I did like a little title in each paragraph or not?
No.
Okay. I'm almost done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Professor, I have a question.
Yes.
One of my friends, she said that she want to go to your class, but she's on the waiting list. But she don't know if she can get inside the class.
The creative writing class?
Yeah.
I think that's the one that's full.
Yeah.
So yeah, just tell that person to be in touch with me like later on, because I think they may, in case there may be like there's a way to do an overtime. But I think at this point, students still tell her to keep looking, because I think at this point people sign up for classes, but then they drop them. It's like there's a lot of movement. So just have them look out. But if not, by the, if it's like middle of January, they could also reach out and
okay.
if they want to, we can speak. But at this point, I can't do any you've heard that term overtally?
Yeah.
Right? So overtally is when the class is full and they have to get permission from the professor and from the department. The angels in heaven to be able to say, we'll let them know.
Okay, thank you. I'll tell her.
Yeah, it filled up the creative writing class. I was shocked that it's full so fast. It's
Yeah, I don't know why it's so full.
And my English 100 class was at 0. Nobody wants to. It's in person.
Nobody wants in person now.
But anyway, I don't want to. I'm happy to stay here. But if folks don't have any other questions related to class, Have a great night and a happy Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Thank
Happy
you.
Thanksgiving. Too.
Enjoy it, everybody. Happy
Enjoy your
Thank
Thanksgiving.
you. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Bye, Professor.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
First, I have one question.
Yes, please.
The first essay that you gave us a chance to do a revision, are those being graded?
They should have been. Oh, I didn't grade yours, April.
You see, that's not nice. So then I get an A.
Maybe. I think I don't know if you got the first one, but if you did a revision, that's the point. Right?
Okay, so I just have to wait on that one?
Yeah, I'll try to do that by tomorrow.
No,
so-
take your time, don't worry.
Okay.
Thank you, happy holidays.
All right. Thank you. You too.
Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Take care, Dama.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Jacqueline. Okay.